Good morning to all of you. Welcome to the class. Today we're going to begin a lesson on photographic exposure. This might be the most difficult lesson I will give in the entire year. It's very important that you understand all the technical information that will be shared with you today. It's very important that you master it because it is the foundation of cinematography. We already spoke about composition, about how to arrange elements within a frame. And we also shared with you some tricks to make sure that whatever you shoot looks beautiful. But that was only half of the story. The other story, the other part of the story, requires for you to master something called exposure, which is what we will be addressing in this lesson. Cecil B. DeMille, famous Hollywood director, in case you never heard of him, you probably heard of his movies. His most famous one has the classic The Ten Commandments, where you have that fantastic scene where the Red Sea is parted and Moses and the Hebrews escape from the Egyptians by passing through the Red Sea. That the director of that movie was Cecil B. DeMille. So he's one of the giants of the filmmaking industry. And he said, and I quote him, lighting is to film what music is to opera. Can you have opera without music? Anyone? No, it's impossible, madam. It's like, can you have a song without music? No. I didn't say instruments, I said music because the human voice creates musicality too. So you don't need it. What I said is without music, not without instruments. You cannot have an opera without music. So what Cecil B. DeMille is saying here, can you have a movie without light? And the answer again is no, it's impossible because as in an opera and a song, the main element is the music. The main element in any visual composition is light. So lighting has always been an essential part of film production because it creates the environment for the storytelling. Remember that movies tell a story. That is our modern way of sharing stories. Our ancestors used to sit around campfires in caves and share stories at nighttime. Then writing was invented and printing was also invented, and we read our stories in books. Nowadays, most people get their storytelling through visual media, right? Through film. So lighting is very important, and lighting needs to be mastered by the storyteller. We shouldn't forget that because filmmaking is telling stories with. We shouldn't forget that uh, because filmmaking is telling stories with pictures, with images. Just like the human eye, a camera can only capture images for a movie through light because the camera, I told you, imitates the human eye. So whether you're using available and natural light or you're using lighting equipment, every production requires a suitable lighting design according to the needs of the film story and the director's vision. So depending on the type of story that you're telling, you're going to create a lighting design. And let me illustrate that with these two images. I want you to look at those two images. They are very different. Let's look at the first one, the one to our left. Remember that every lighting setup provides a specific mood or atmosphere. In other words, it sets up a way for you to feel certain emotions. And the lighting setup also provides a certain aesthetics or look, an artistic look to the overall viewing experience. Without light, it will be impossible to see anything, remember. And you cannot shoot a movie without light. So let's look at the first one. First question, how does that picture make you feel? What emotions, what moods is it transmitting to you? Okay, first of all, it's nighttime, right? And you can see the city lights in the background. Can you? We see a sidewalk, and what do you see on the sidewalk? There's a body. We don't know. We don't know if it's dead. We can't assume that that person is not well. It could mean the person is unconscious, the person is hurt, or the person could be dead. But we don't know that yet. But it's uncomfortable for us to view that, and it transmits an emotion of safety. Do you feel safe? Does that look like a safe environment? No, the answer is no, right? Because you're normally, when you're in a sidewalk, you're not lying in a sidewalk, like you're walking on it. So something bad happened here. We can make that assumption. We could be wrong, but chances are we're right. Something bad happened here. There's what seems to be a policeman or a detective in a trench coat looking through a fence. And the light is what color? Red. Okay, you see black because it's dark, but you see red also. Question: when you see black and red, are those colors that are associated with safety? What are, what are they? What are they associated with? Danger? With danger, because the red color in our subconscious mind creates a state of alert. It grabs our attention. It's anything but relaxing. It is a color that excites our emotions. That's why you see that many agencies, when there's an emergency, especially these agencies that deal with emergencies, they have a red siren, like ambulances, like the fire department. They use red, don't they? So, what mood is this image transmitting to you guys? One question you might be asking yourself, or you might need to ask yourself, is would you want to be there in the middle of that? No, no, it makes us uncomfortable. Now, look at the next picture. How does it make you feel? But first of all, what do we see there? Okay, we see a grassy field, which is nature. We see a cloudy sky. Um, the light is the light. The light is like golden. We see a couple there. We see a couple there that is like cuddling, right? They look like very comfortable together. They don't look uncomfortable at all because they're sharing a space. When people share spaces, it's because they feel comfortable with each other. When people back away from each other, it's because they feel the opposite. They feel uncomfortable. So, how does this picture make you feel? Okay, Julian said that it's kind of romantic. And when something is romantic, does it make you feel safe or unsafe? Safe. They they look very comfortable because they're snuggling. They don't look uncomfortable at all. So what I want to illustrate here is how different the mood is in each picture, and a large component of how you feel about looking at these images, and I said a large component, not the only component, but a large chunk of how you feel has to do with the lighting, how it is lit. It has to do also with the color scheme, the color design. One is dark and foreboding. There are parts of the picture we cannot see, and when we cannot see something, it puts us on alert. We feel unsafe, we feel danger. So the mood that we get from the first picture is one of danger. And what kind of movie should we be presenting this type of mood? In a comedy or in a crime story? Right, you see, so you're seeing, okay, what about the next one? And the other one, we feel safe. Someone said romantic, right? You, well, um, I, okay, but generally speaking, in general terms, I think that most people would feel uncomfortable with the first photo because of the reasons we already described. And most people would feel very comfortable with what's going on in the second picture. Would I like to be there? Yes, I would. Not with the guy. I would like to be there. I would like to be in that situation. If you look at the second picture, what genre would you say that would be? Would that be like a romantic movie, or would it be like a horror movie? What would you associate that image with? Yeah, so would I. I'm not saying that it could not be a horror movie. Maybe it could, but that's not the vibe I'm getting at this moment. What I'm getting with this shot is the vibe that, hey, this has to be romantic. You have two people cuddling, they seem comfortable. The light design, all of that screams to me romantic. So every genre, and we're going to be talking about genre very soon. I discuss genre also in my literature courses. So if you're taking literature in eighth grade, genre is also discussed there. So anyway, we'll discuss genre in this class also because you know that there's an overlap between literature and cinematography. Remember that literature is cinematography's mommy, the same way that photography is cinematography's daddy. Okay, so depending on the genre, you're going to use specific lighting designs. You don't use the lighting design of a romantic movie and a crime story, right? I think you're not that you're not supposed to, but usually, generally, you don't. Okay, the main reason why lighting is needed in a film production is because of the technical requirement for proper exposure in every single shot of a film. Look at this image. Can you see this image well? No. Could you have seen it well? Probably yes. Whose fault was it? The sun's, the cameras, the photographers? Whose fault is it that this picture is not what it could have been? The photographer, the person using the camera, because that person was supposed to use the proper exposure. This picture is underexposed. And what underexposed means is that the picture looks too dark because the sensor of the camera received less light than it was supposed to. It was underexposed to what? Underexposed to light. So because there was not enough light, what you see is dark. This could have been a very beautiful sundown or sunset picture of the Via Appia in Rome, which is a very beautiful road, ancient road of the Romans. So this photo is underexposed because it received too little light. So you cannot recognize the details because they are too dark. I'm going to show you another problem that can occur also when you're not managing the exposure the correct way. If you look at the following image, we have an opposite and equal problem. This shooting has too much light. Again, that is the fault of the photographer for not adjusting the exposure of his camera correctly. This picture is overexposed because it received more light than it was supposed to. The first one received less light. This one is receiving too much light. Overexposed. Yeah. The first one is underexposed. This one is overexposed. And the problem is the same. When it's underexposed, the image cannot be appreciated well because it lacks detail. The reason that it lacks detail is because it's too dark. But here we have the same problem. It lacks detail, but for the opposite reason. It has too much light. It's blinding. It's too bright. It's washed out to the point where we cannot see any detail. That's a man with some sunglasses. I kind of can see that. but I can hardly see anything else. So for a film to be properly exposed, the cinematographer and the lighting team have to utilize the equipment correctly, the right type of light, the right type of lenses, make the proper adjustments in the camera. So the shot will not be too dark or too bright, and it will hold all the detail that is possible. Because remember, when you're looking at an image, it should be as properly exposed as it can be within the environment in which you're shooting. Let me show you the problem and how an image looks when it's properly exposed. This is one picture. It's been divided into three areas. One is underexposed. The other one is correctly exposed. And the other one is overexposed. And which of those three can you watch and observe the most detail? The one that is correctly exposed, the one in the middle, that's the best possible shot you can get of that environment. If you look to the one at your left, which says it's underexposed, you don't have enough detail there because it's too dark. And the same thing is happening at the other side where it says that it's overexposed because it has too much light instead of too little light. So details are washed out, and the other side they are darkened, and in the middle you have a correct balance. Are you seeing? Are you understanding this, guys? Okay. So whenever you take an image, your images should not look overexposed or underexposed. They should be correctly exposed. Now, how do you do that? How can you make sure that you're taking the right kind of picture? By managing the three main variables that control the amount of light that enters into the camera sensor or film if you're using a film camera. The element that you have to deal with to master exposure are three. Number one, aperture. Number two, shutter speed. Number three, ISO. The right combination of these variables is at the center of every piece of good photography that exists or cinematography that exists out there. Let's look at aperture. Let's look at, okay, first let's define exposure. When we talk about exposure, it refers to the amount of light that you allow to enter the sensor. When you're shooting a still photograph, cameras use a mechanical shutter that regulates the exposure by opening the desired amount of time, okay, and then closing. And where do you control aperture? You control aperture at the lens. Aperture is the adjustable opening near the rear of the lens that lets light through, and the amount of light it transmits is generally referred to as the f-stop. Look at those. Look at the diagram. Your eye has a mechanism that is very similar to that one. It's called the iris. What happens when you are in your bedroom in the middle of the night and you wake up because you have to go to the bathroom? You open your eyes, and if you open them for a while, what happens to your eyes? Can they see in the dark or no? Exactly. You have to give some time to your eye to adjust. But the part of your eye that is adjusting is the iris, and it looks very much like what you're seeing there. Well, a camera lens has there. What's the job of the iris? To control the amount of light that is going into your eye. Because remember, we see light. So the iris adjusts that. What happens when you're too much time in the dark and all of a sudden you're exposed to a lot of light? What happens to you? Let's say that you are, but why do they hurt? What else happened? Okay, but but aren't you temporarily blinded? Yes, you're temporarily blinded. It's dark. Your eyes are adjusted to the dark, and then you switch on the light, and whoa, like what happened here? You got blind for a second, and you're seeing like little dots of light dancing in front of your eyes until little by little your eyes adjust to the light and the environment. Again, what is adjusting? The iris is also adjusting. So what happens in the dark? The iris opens as much as it can to allow as much light as possible to enter your eye. That happens in the dark. So your iris is wide open. So what happens when you turn the switch on? All that light, your iris is open. It blinds you. So your iris has to begin shutting down and closing and closing and closing until it can adjust and minimize the amount of light that is entering, because the image is overexposed. Are you seeing the problem? Same thing happens when your eyes are accustomed to the light, and all of a sudden, lights out. You're as blind as a bat. You cannot see everything's pitch black until your eyes adjust. Well, why is it pitch black? Because your iris is too close and very little light is entering into the sensors in your eyes. And your iris has to begin opening and opening and opening and opening and opening to allow as much ambient light to enter your eye and adjust to the darkness. And now you can see a little bit better. Is this making sense to you guys? Uh, okay, very good. Okay. So the part of the camera that you adjust the light that is coming in is the camera lens. But guys, we ran out of time, and I'm gonna have to catch up with you guys again in the next lesson. Okay, we'll keep on talking about how we control exposure, because that's what this lesson is all about. So I already gave you a little bit of food for thought. Um, don't forget to read the entire lesson. You can find it in my website. If you're having trouble with the LMS, there are videos for you to watch in the PowerPoint presentations in my website. So please visit my website and watch the PowerPoint and not just the PDF that I uploaded. My website, madam, is jimsoto.weebly.com. And there are three tabs on the top. One says literature, the other one says history of Puerto Rico, and the other one says cinematography. You go to the one titled cinematography, and you just hit that page, and everything is there. You look around that page, okay, and the lessons you'll find this lesson there. It's there. All right. This lesson is titled photographic exposure, and the PowerPoint is there. Okay. All right, guys. Then I'm gonna let you go because you have places to go, and so do I. I'll be seeing you. What's today? Thursday. I'll be seeing you next week on Monday, right? On Monday, we'll continue talking more about exposure.